we'll see what happens. How, if at all, do you think this series of events in Venezuela will affect the negotiations between the United States and Russia over Ukraine, Ray?
Just to make a point on your last thing, the Democrats are just as guilty of disregarding the Constitution.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the point to make.
Absolutely.
With respect to negotiations, look, all bets are off. I mean, how are the people in the Kremlin going to persuade Putin to appear amicable or appear able to deal with this fellow who's gone a little bit crazier than he usually is? So I see the negotiations themselves as ending, at least for the nonce. Now, the big question, of course, is will there be a nuclear confrontation? And I think, you can look at the history of all this. You can see what the U.S. did or what U.S. Clients did with respect to strategic bombers, with respect to other things, and now with respect to the attack on Valdai. The Russian response has been, look, let's remember, number one, we don't want a nuclear war. Yeah, we may be upset, we may be outraged, but look, we got the thing going here in Ukraine. Nobody's going to win this. This is our territory. Let's focus on this and just make sure that Trump knows through our other channels that we're serious about this. And as I said before, I think this might be reinforced by an Oreshnik or two on Ukrainian targets, probably those where we have NATO personnel identified. I think that's coming quite soon because Putin does have to demonstrate to the naysayers here that he is not a paper tiger. He's going to go after the people who he thinks are responsible for this. Now, the NATO technology that was in those drones, maybe it's hard to pin that on the United States itself, but there is technology from NATO. So the Russians can say, well, all right, you better stop that. And Mr. Trump, to show your goodwill, will you finally end your intelligence support for these people?
France, Great Britain, the governments are of enormous unpopularity, and they're being seriously challenged from the right, and these challenges are open, public, and notorious. As these challenges are going on, President Trump makes a statement, Chris, if you want to put that full screen up, that he's going to impose serious sanctions on Russia. I don't know what sanctions he can impose that Joe Biden didn't already impose. I'm ready to do major sanctions on Russia when, quote, all NATO nations have agreed and started to do the same thing, and when all NATO nations stop buying oil from Russia. Well, this is ridiculous. Turkey's not going to stop. Hungary's not going to stop. They're in NATO. They're never going to agree. It almost sounds as if he made this statement to please Lindsey Graham and Tom Cotton, but has no ability to carry it out.
Well, yeah, I think to undercut those people. In other words, isn't it a plausible argument? Okay, NATO, you're so hot on sanctions against Russia and China. Join us. We're ready. We're ready to go, says Trump. Just to make sure that you join us. That's economic suicide. Okay. Now, the sanctions themselves laid out in such a way that they're ineffectual. The economists advising Trump, my God, they used to make a joke about economists. What's an economist? And the answer was, it's an accountant without the sense of humor. Well, now, an economist is an accountant without the ability to do math, for God's sake, okay? Sanctions were never a good idea, and especially not for Western Europe. So here is Trump saying, look, I'm ready to go when you are, but, you NATO includes Turkey and all the others. Like, you people have been buying Russian oil. You know that. I know that. You better stop, and they can't stop. So this is a gambit. This is proof positive, in my view, that Trump wants out of Ukraine. that these people are not going to do that. And he's going to turn to the Lindsey Grahams of this world and say, look, why do you want us to throw more money and more time? I'm losing my patience when the Europeans won't do this and they're right on the scene. So there are all kinds of indications that Trump wants out. I think he will get out. It's a matter of whether he can make this appear to be a negotiated deal with the Russians or not. Either way, the Russians win, and NATO is left foundering without any economic advantage, no matter which way the wind blows.
Last week, when we promoted your show, we got into these issues and forgot to address what we said we would, which was the Ray McGovern expansion of the phrase military-industrial complex, once called military-industrial congressional complex, to the way you have expanded it to this acronym called MICIMATT, MICIMATT. What is that, Ray?
Judge, I picked an acronym that might be remembered easily by being identified with Mickey Mouse, okay? But not funny like Mickey Mouse. Goes back to Eisenhower, of course, and his warning and his farewell address about the strength, whether it was desired or undesired, we know it was desired now, of the military-industrial complex. He warned, he said, look, I've seen this firsthand. I've been president. This is the danger to a democracy. Watch it. And very important, he said, the only antidote, the only thing that can prevent this resurgence of power is a well-informed citizenry. Okay, so I was gratified after I did this acronym about 8 years ago that none other than Steve Cohen blessed it, and his wife, Katrina Van Heuvel. Other people, Pepe Escobar, promoted it so much that it's now in the dictionary. What it means is the military-industrial congressional, okay, no more needs to be said about that. Military-industrial congressional intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex. Now, I don't have to dissect that whole thing, but let's just say, why does McGovern say media as though it were in all caps? Because media is the linchpin. You can't do the MICIMATT without the media, and it's much more powerful, this media, than it ever was under Eisenhower, however powerful it was then. So what's a recent manifestation of this is what happened on the campuses, okay? That's academia, right? But who persuaded these presidents that were put in to rule over these campuses to do what they did in suppressing dissent on Palestine? Well, it was the local authorities. It was the industrialists, the people with the money that fund these universities. It was a classic example of the media as well, cooperating in all to suppress legitimate dissent on a matter of genocide. Can you believe it? So I rest my case. The MICIMATT has grown like Topsy. It's the major threat to our freedoms. And we have to recognize it, because as strong as we are, if we look at each other as a movement, we need to realize that this is a tough nut to crack, and we can't desist or flinch for a moment from attacking it, especially the media. And that's why programs like this and other alternative media, so-called, are so essential to our freedom right now. Sorry to carry on so long, Judge.
No, it's a great answer, Rick. A rather slick and dramatic and foreboding PR piece that the Ukraine government produced with American money, of course. I don't think these are actors. These are real soldiers, but you'll see the message that the Ukraine government is trying to convey. Now, were you able to see and translate what was on the screen at the end?
I couldn't see it very well, Judge. No.
Okay. Was it in Russian or Ukrainian?
It was in Russian, yeah, but I think there was a subliminal message there. All this is to the mass media. We're losing, but please don't admit it, for God's sake.
You're so smart. I thought the shush was don't reveal our plans. Don't let anybody know when we're going to attack. And you're basically saying to the Western media, shush, don't tell anybody the truth.
Well, they've been advertising their plans for months now. I mean, it's the most interesting pre-publication counteroffensive that I've ever seen in military history, and I've seen a lot of them.
I just want to switch gears for a minute because I know you're a student of history, and tomorrow, June 6th, is, of course, the anniversary of D-Day, which begins the liberation of Europe in 1944. What role, if any, did the Russian military play in D-Day, Ray?
Well, the Russians had already pushed the Germans back. It was just a matter of time before they conquered the Germans. We helped immensely. We helped through Lend-Lease. Studebaker produced 200,000 I don't know if you were in the Army, 2.5-ton trucks, okay? They could do anything over any terrain. And when I met a Russian general, actually the Soviet general infantry, 91 years old, in Moscow 6 or 7 years ago, after I recited a kind of a poem about Russian grief, he came up to me and he said, Studebaker, 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 and then he gave me a great big embrace. Now, what was that all about? Studebaker provided the wherewithal through Iran, mind you, to the southern part of the Soviet Union at the time, which allowed people like Bagramov, this general, to move his troops, to haul their artillery, to make sure they could go forward. And they did. Did the U.S. help? Indeed, the U.S. helped. Would the Russians have won anyway? I believe that they probably would have taken another year, but they would have ended up on the Atlantic shores and the shores of the Mediterranean. So it was good that we intervened, but it was sort of in a supporting role. And some of my friends know a lot about this that more than I do, like Scott Ritter and Larry Wilkerson. On my website is an interesting colloquy where the two of them go at it about who really won the war.